I'm going to go ahead and open us up in prayer, and then
Okay.
we'll see if I can figure out this video. God, we thank you so much for this day and this time. We thank you so much for Sarah and both the wisdom that she has brought to the table through herself and through her community. We thank you today for Arthur, through the ways that you move through him, the work that you do through him in the community, the way that he cares for your creation. God, teach us to care for your creation as well. Move us not just to be hearers and listeners, but doers. And thank you for bringing us together around the table. In your holy and precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Right. Sarah, you want to go ahead and get an introduction going, and then I'll do this. Where'd Sarah go?
I think she's frozen.
Sorry.
Oh, if you want to go ahead, did you want to go ahead and?
Yes.
Am I doing the video or are you doing an introduction?
I was just going to do a sentence introduction and then
Go for it.
you will hit the video. So give me 1 second.
Uh-huh.
So we're talking about environmental justice tonight. And as I was thinking about this week and all of the other weeks, you know, I had the thought similar to, I don't know who was actually talking to me earlier and saying like, we have questions, but it's just so much information because I can't see my little tiny picture. But I was feeling similarly, and not only about that, but just about impacting the world around me, and particularly with the Supreme Court's decisions coming out and the legislature that's happening in Louisiana. It can all be very overwhelming. And so I was listening to somebody today just kind of talk about that. And this is just the last minute and a half what she had to say, but it was very encouraging. And so we're going to watch just a quick video. Like I said, it's about a minute and a half, and hopefully that'll give Arthur enough time to jump on. But hit it. Oh, that's a very unattractive
all
look.
of the people who have come before us, who faced seemingly insurmountable obstacles, who felt nothing but fear and dread when they looked to the future. They had no glimmer of hope on the horizon that anything would change. And yet they kept moving forward anyway, confident that someday, somehow, their small efforts would matter. And your small efforts matter today. There is no sense that like, well, give it up. It's all been decided. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. And it is our job at this moment in time to rise to the occasion. And so my hope for you today is that you take the entire lifetime of experiences and character that you have been building, and you use everything you have learned to rise to meet this moment. That you do not turn away from the challenges that we face, that you summon the courage to look them in the eye and to rise to meet this moment. The outcome of what will happen in this country is not a foregone conclusion.
You can go ahead and stop it,
It
Jen.
depends on people.
Because she's going to
like
go on
you.
to talk about other things that aren't necessarily relevant to us this evening. But so anyway, I just really appreciated what she said. We can think about what we're facing in our communities, in the church, in our environment, in housing, you can fill in the blank. And yet God has prepared each one of us to rely on him in order to keep moving forward. It's not in our own strength. It's not in just us in ourselves. And yet he asks each one of us to bring that little bit of oil and that little bit of flour, and he's going to do incredible things. And so I was watching her today and was just really encouraged by that, not to be overwhelmed by the insurmountable things in front of us, but just to take that next step. But this evening, Arthur is not on, and he's making me nervous because like I said, I talked to him this morning, And I
Uh,
emailed him.
says that
Sorry?
he's on. It says that he's on.
That's okay. So that's actually he has
Oh,
something taking notes for him.
gotcha.
I'm texting him as we speak. Are you jumping on Zoom? So hopefully it's coming on. But Arthur Johnson is the executive director of CSED, which is the Center for Sustainable Engagement and Development. It is a nonprofit located here in the Lower Ninth Ward. It's one of the few that were started after the levees broke during Katrina and is still in existence. So all of the people, actually, I don't know that there's any other nonprofit that was started after Katrina that's still in existence other than the ones that you guys have met and have interacted with. But he said he's jumping on now. But they specifically focus on environmental justice. If you look at a map of Louisiana, similar to Florida, we are completely surrounded by water. But something that's a little different is that not only are we surrounded by water, but the water actually comes up into the land, and the different pockets of communities sit right on the water. But not only that, is that I want to say that, well, starting in the early 1900s, they started building these canals that push the water from the Gulf and from Lake Pontchartrain up into the city even further. And so that was actually part of the devastation that happened from Katrina. The water from the storm was pushed up into those canals, which is what pushed onto the levees and broke the levees. And so one of those canals has been shut down, but the rest of them still are very much so in existence. And we definitely have warnings every single year as the Mississippi River rises, because it's about to topple over the levees. And you can imagine how many millions and millions of gallons of water that is. We have a bayou that is literally a block from my house. I can see when I go out on my porch, I can see cruise ships go past. That's like 8 blocks from my house. And they are currently talking about taking down the old lock system that holds the Mississippi River back from coming into the canal that goes by our house. And they want to bring it 12 blocks into the neighborhood even further. So the Mississippi River will be 12 blocks further into our neighborhood. And so Arthur,
Hello.
he is on.
Sorry, I'm late.
No problem, no problem. They just got to hear me ramble on for a little bit.
Okay. Keep rambling. I'm good.
I am definitely not going to keep rambling because they've heard me talk a lot and they want to hear you.
Okay. All
So,
right.
but while you're getting set, I'll give you an easy question. Tell us about who you are and your connection to the Lower Ninth Ward.
Oh, okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Arthur Johnson. I'm the CEO for the Center for Sustainable Engagement and Development. I guess I wear a few hats around these days, including chair of the Leona Tate Foundation, the organization. And so my organization is a community-based nonprofit that was created after Hurricane Katrina, around 2000, I guess 2005, 2006. Its intent was to be a catalyst and a vehicle for the Lower Ninth Ward community, but also other communities, coastal communities, and communities of color, underserved communities, starting that were hit by disasters like Hurricane Katrina. And we've over the years have grown to not only be that voice about disaster, but also to be a catalyst and talking about how our environment interacts with our quality of life. And I think I can't say I was the first one to kind of say that about quality of life, but I've been preaching it for over a decade, the importance that the environment plays and how it impacts our quality of life. And that's A through Z. That's our recreation, our education, our housing, our faith in many cases, our communities, everything that we do, our recreation. And so, we can't ignore uh, the environment. And again, it's not so much about what it's called, the term climate change and all of these terms start to get very political. But let's look at weather patterns. We can see how the weather patterns have been changing over the years, but much faster in the last couple of years. We see this year. Last year we had excessive heat, and that hit the whole Gulf Coast from Texas to Florida, particularly, but also our whole United States, our whole globe was warming, becoming much warmer. And that's fact. That's not something that we have to guess about. It doesn't matter what you call it, but it's important. But also with that heat, it also impacts our health. We had COVID. I mean, if there's one example that to me just says it all, is that here's an environmental disease that happened from things that we intake into our system, for what we breathe, for what we touch, for what we taste, and it shut down the whole world for a time. So, as we continue with this, it's important for us, not only as my organization, but for me as a person. And this is more than just, it's not a job, it's a quality of life. It's a way of how we live and how we hope to survive, and the impact of what it means to all of us as we move along. And I think our mental, emotional, and physical aspects of life are impacted by our environment. Our moods are definitely impacted by there. So, there are a lot of things that go on. And so I'm glad to be that Sarah asked me to be part of this, and to share with you, my thoughts, some of the work that we've done. We focus on research. We look at community science. I'm an advocate for the next generation, the young people. They're those who will have to try to right our wrongs of my generation, and I'm a baby boomer in this as we continue to survive. And we have to deal with all of these issues. But we also, for me personally, my faith is very important, because sometimes I don't know where to turn, and you just feel like you're just overwhelmed. And so, sometimes you have to stop and try to figure out, or try to hope that you get some meditation that helps us move forward, so that we can, as they say, live to fight another day. So I'm
You just
originally,
mentioned that. Oh,
yeah.
sorry. I
Go
was
ahead,
going to just
that's all right.
piggyback off of what you were saying. You just said that the next generation is really important. Can you tell them a little bit about what's going on right now during the summer, and how CSED is making an impact on the future generation?
Sure. So what Sarah is making reference to is that we have an environmental intern and research internship for high school students. This is our fourth summer we've done it. It's a 5-week focus, but it's a year-round program. But the core of it is this 5 weeks in the summer, when we can capture these young minds. And they're actually doing research. They're doing environmental research on air, soil, and water. And so we're doing that. We're this year at the TEP Center. We have about 20 high school students from grades 8 through 12. We also, in connection with that, we have a few of our college fellows and graduate fellows that are part of this as well as adults who are researchers and research assistants. It is led by Professor out of Dillard, Dr. Bernard Singleton, who's from New Orleans. He went to Carver School, High School, went to Dillard University, and then went to Tuskegee for his doctorate. He's also he's a veteran. He's a retired veteran, and so he's vested. He's lived all over the world, but he's vested here in New Orleans. And so we teamed together to create. We had an idea. We said, well, there's been a lot of STEM STEM awareness. And we said, that's great. Kids need to maybe try to put some thoughts together and understand about the science and how that fits in. But we said, we need to do something different. I don't want to create just another STEM awareness program. So we said, well, let's do research. Something, and we said, something that young people don't get. They don't get the research theory in high school or even in undergrad. And we said, well, this could be interesting because we can tie this research that they will look at into their own communities. So then it becomes something that's vested in them because it's a part of who they are. And so we'll instruct them on the research theory. We'll take them out and let them, we started with simple things like, let's look at the water. I mean, let's test bottled water versus water in the river versus water out the faucet. And then let's look at water in different communities and see, under the microscope, so how safe is or how clean is it, or, and they got to see that. And then, then their mind started going and thinking, well, because a bottled water in the store costs $5.99 for a bottle versus 99 cents. Does that mean that the $5.99 is better? And we said, okay, well, this is research. Okay, let's take that and let's put it on the microscope and let's see what you see. And so you find that maybe the $5.99, even though it costs more, is not necessarily meaning that it's better. Maybe the 99 cent better. Maybe it's actually better out the faucet than either one of those. And it's, so you get those minds going and you get them to start thinking about what the research is, what it means. And then, once you get young people a hook, oh, they love it. They take and run with it. They use social media to talk about their research. And so then, we train them. They have, they get the research jackets, what do you call them? I can't think of what it is, but anyway, that the white coats. So they have the white coats, they have, lab coats. They have that, they understand real research. And then this research, we said, well, now that they're doing this research, okay, how do we get them to project that research, to present it? And so right along with them doing the research, they also get a chance to go and they present at the Mayor's Neighborhood Summit. They've done that for 3 years and we'll do it again this year. They presented at a regional national conference called State of the Coast here in New Orleans that's done by one of the larger environmental groups. And they're the youngest presenters at these activities. And so, but they're also learning how to express themselves, how to feel comfortable, or maybe they're not very comfortable like we all are speaking in front of people sometimes, but learn how to do that. And so it's also a mentoring part. So it's not only just the science, but it's through that they're also getting to understand and more about who they are, more about their communities, more about their inner self. And this is what we project, because we know that that's going to be important when they get out of high school, if they go to college, go in the job, the workforce, they need to have that feeling of confidence. And we know that these young people, this is not necessarily the young people are selected that are the top of their class. They're not at the bottom of their class either. They're just regular students, like many of us have been, but given an opportunity that allows them to project themselves and who they are and find that, oh, this can be interesting. Maybe it's fun for some, maybe but interesting enough to want to pursue it. And then you find how many young people are really kind of interested in, well, what's happening out there in the environment, the water, the soil, what things that'll grow. We take them on field trips where we've taken them to, of course, the central wetlands. This year, we're going to do a boat tour out at the Surge Barrier, which separates the central wetlands from the Gulf of Mexico. I'm sure many of you have seen it. Maybe some of you have been out there. This huge, I call it like a wall that was built by the Army Corps of Engineers, billions of dollars. we take them to this year we're focusing a lot on drainage and water management. So we're going to the sewage and water board, pumping stations, and seeing how the water starts to get here in New Orleans, and where that begins and sort of where it ends. The Mississippi River, which is right in our own neighborhood in the Lower Nine, where they can see that. So it's all of these aspects of this. When we talk about the next generation, it's a physical, emotional, mental opportunity for these young people to do something in the summer, and they get technology. We're giving them an iPad that they'll be able to take with them, but they use during the summer. They get a stipend as well for their work, but they get to present at the end in 5 weeks, the culminating event where they'll be able to present to their families and supporters and others in the audience about their research. So it's actual research. And so this year we're also pushing to have some of that research published through Dr. Singleton and his contacts in scientific journals. So it's, again, each year we're trying to grow bigger and better and show them that they too are community scientists, and they can be whatever they want to be, and how research is not only just, the ones in the lab coats, but it takes all aspects to do research. It takes technology people. It takes, marketing. It also takes accountants and others to make all that happen on research. So it's not just the guys and girls that have the lab coats and the glasses, and you say, oh, we call them the nerds. It's not just them, and it's not, it can be anybody. And then you can be an athlete. So that's the other factor. Kids are like, oh, I have interest. I want to be, LeBron James or something of that nature. And so we said, well, that's fine. You can, but you can do both. You can be a student, an academic student, and an athlete. There's no reason why you can't do both. You'll need to do both if you're going to excel in that point. So, you have to just work your time, but that's where you want to go. That's great. There's no reason why you can't be, because you can't play sports forever. So you need to have another aspect and interest. So I think all of these are things that we're getting from these young people. And, some are in the Lower Nine, some are, throughout the city. Some go to public schools, some go to private schools, some go to charter schools. We don't discriminate about what school, and and so this year, for the first year, we did referrals for the last 3 years, but this year we kind of spread it out a little bit and just kind of put out flyers at Martin Luther King High School and New Harmony, which is high school, which is a state charter school that we worked with over the years. And we got some real good students, and we had some returning students. We have some new students. In the last 3 years, we were very heavily occupied in our internship by Black males, believe it or not. We had 1 or 2 females. This year, we have about 50-50. And maybe some of that is because maybe we reached out more, but that's also good, because then there's that blend. And these are all people, young people. Some of them know each other, but many of them don't. But they have developed, and particularly ones that are returning, have developed relationships with their colleagues. And it's just amazing to see them interact and engage with each other. And it's, it's more so than just the science. It's the whole idea that these are our future. These are young people, and they're working together, and they're interested. And it warms my heart. As I say, they're young people and not so young. I'm on a not so young level, but to see how they can interact and make a difference. And that's what we need, because we're not doing such a great job of it in my generation, for sure.
So I absolutely love your holistic approach in working with students, but to pull back the lens just a little bit. So when I think of environmental justice, it's not my area of expertise, and it feels quite a bit overwhelming. How do you, as the CEO of this nonprofit, decide what you guys are going to get involved in, what's going to be worth your time, and how you guys are going to move within this arena?
Well, we do a lot of planning, um, and learning from, previous years, and not only just about the previous internship, but we also learn about the work we do all year round of community engagement of, what's the needs in the community and what's important. And then we sit down and we brainstorm, my team, we do that with some of our supporters of what they're interested in supporting, and direction of, where we may need to go. What are some new aspects? Like last year, we had the, saltwater wedge. So that was like something, kind of new to most people.
For those, they're
Yeah.
in Florida. Can you explain what the saltwater wedge is?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. So
That's okay.
saltwater wedge, is where we begin. Okay. So in the Mississippi River, or any river, and the Mississippi River is fresh water. And what means fresh water, and you have that in Florida, the rivers are fresh. For Florida, are they on the east of the Gulf or west of the Gulf by chance in relation
They're
to
in the dead
location?
center.
Oh,
They're in the
okay.
middle.
So like
They're not near the
Orlando, and
coast.
they're
They've
not
got
near the
lots of
coast.
fresh water. They've got lakes, lots and lots and lots
Okay,
of lakes.
so with fresh water, comparable to salt water, which the ocean is salt water, the Gulf is salt water, the rivers are fresh water. So the Mississippi River is fresh water. So if you would dig into the core, the body of fresh water, there is probably some salt water there. But what happens, because there's more fresh water, it dilutes the salt, and so therefore, in a scientific way, the measurement of solidity in the water is so low, it is not harmful to, as we use fresh water, the Mississippi water is where we get our drinking water. So, when you hear about lake fish and lake seafood, it's different comparable to ocean. Is basically it's the fresh versus the salt water. So the Corps of Engineers went in and started dredging the Mississippi River. They dredged it because they need to make it deeper so that larger vessels could come through the Mississippi River, and those vessels come towards New Orleans and then go through our industrial canal, which is a federal canal, as they make their way from the river into the Gulf of Mexico. Well, as they've been dredging this, they have disturbed the salt that's at the bottom of the river. So as they disturbed that, they disturbed it enough where then it became this wedge, like a chunk, but on a massive miles of salt that's at the bottom, and you disturbed it, so now it has risen. Well, this is usually not a problem, except last year we did not have, everyone knows, we didn't, we were in a drought. We didn't have much rain, and so there wasn't fresh water, rainwater coming into the river. And so when they disturbed this wedge, that salt there, it started to rise to the top. Well, if we had rain like we normally have, well, it would have just diluted it and would not have been a problem. But it didn't have rain, so that wedge started to get bigger and bigger and rising and started moving. So then now we have salt water in a freshwater body, which, what do we do with fresh water? Fresh water is what we drink from. Fresh water is what we wash our clothes. And what goes into our pipes when we, our washing machines coming out our faucets, watering our grass, feeding our animals is all fresh water. So now you got salt water in that, and that not only dilutes it, but it's also dangerous. You can't drink it. You shouldn't drink it. You can't. It gets into your skin. Your animals can't do well with it. And so this thing called this saltwater wedge started to move, and to a point where it's moving, and now we can't control it. We can't stop it, and there's no rain to dilute it. So now we got to figure out, okay, what do we need to do? How do we pump more fresh water into that? Yes, it sounds like something coming out of a cartoon, but it's not. It is serious. And so then what also happens, those communities that are more underserved, don't have the resources. So now you say, oh, we're gonna, in Hackman and Plaquemines Parish. Plaquemines is out of part of the greater New Orleans community. There's two parts of Plaquemines. There's East Plaquemines and West Plaquemines. Well, East Plaquemines is a community of color, more underserved community, and poor community. West is more where Belle Chase Air Force Base is, and they're a more affluent community. So the wedge started in the East Plaquemines, moving towards West Plaquemines. Well, and then we started to get notice about this wedge, because before then, when it was just infiltrating East Plaquemines, we didn't hear much about it on the news. But as it started to move into a more affluent area, and also in a more metropolitan area, because of course, East Plaquemines, we're talking about maybe 10,000 people. Well, now you're talking about, if it goes to West Plaquemines and heading towards New Orleans, now we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people that can be impacted. So it's a big difference. And so you had the Army Corps, you got the federal government, you got the state government, you got the local governments trying to figure out what are we going to do about this? So anyway, this was one situation that happened last year, as we looked at from an environmental perspective, what that really meant. And then we got to do more research about what was this thing called this saltwater wedge, and I guess in Florida it might be difficult for that, because the biggest thing was this Mississippi River, which goes from starts in Minnesota and goes all the way down and ends in Louisiana and goes through about 11 different states. So, it is the largest watershed that in this country that flows through, and then a lot of tributaries that connect onto the river. So I don't think there's anything quite like that in the Florida. And y'all have the Florida Keys and, the Gulf on one side, the ocean on the other, on that basis. So it's nothing kind of in comparison, but, this was a big environmental issue. They did get under control towards the end of hurricane season, and was able to kind of stop it, so it didn't reach the greater New Orleans metropolitan area as it was anticipated. But there was a lot of not only conversation, but looking at, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to do that? Pumping fresh water in from further north on the river to try to dilute this thing, to try to stop it, putting up sort of barriers that where maybe it wouldn't be able to move forth, going further down to try to cap this wedge. When we're talking about we're talking about something that's very large in diameter. So capping is kind of hard to do. It's not as easy as it may sound on that basis. So, but anyway, that was one of the challenges last year. This year, we're
So
we're kind of looking
what did
at it.
CSED do in response?
Well,
think
what
I
we
missed
did,
that part.
we figured, that we needed to first alert the community, and we needed to alert first. Well, first of all, we said we needed to. How can we help the people of Plaquemines? So we got together. This was a disaster, and and looked at disaster relief and how we could get water to them and food, and because they couldn't use the water. Even boiling it wasn't going to help the situation and as much. And they couldn't wash clothes. They shouldn't use it. It can cause irritations on the skin and things of that nature. So we worked with the people there. Then we also figured we needed to educate others, because many of the people in New Orleans may have relatives down there and the like. And if it's coming this way, we need to know, okay, what can we do? So we got together with our community, and we held a community meeting, because we couldn't get our public officials to give us any assistance or response. All they would refer to is, well, refer to the Army Corps of what it said, and that really wasn't helping community. So
Well, I was
we
going to say,
had our.
as a member of the community, I did not know that this was a man-made issue.
Yes.
That was not
And
communicated to us as community members. It was just simply, oh, there's a drought, therefore there's this wedge and we need to be on alert, but don't worry, we've
Right.
got it. And I'm definitely learning quite a bit from you this evening, and it definitely makes my blood boil.
Well, and that's what we were concerned because people weren't informed, you know. And so, so we held this community meeting. We got the National Weather Service to be part of it. We had NOLA Ready, which is sort of as part of the city government, to come and talk about it and what they knew at this point, what people need to know. And we got, we worked with the Lower Ninth Ward Neighborhood Association, Homeowners Association, and Neighborhood Association to hold this. We invited our public officials, but none of them would attend. Neither would any of our state representatives. And that was disheartening simply because, I mean, you put these people in, we're not saying that you have any answers, but at least can you come and,
Show some attempt at
talk to us?
concern.
Yeah, talk to us about what you know or what you don't know, but it's an issue. Don't act like it doesn't exist, but they didn't. And so when we held this on, it was very successful. We did it ourselves. We provided a little bit of food for the people, and we got them, and they got to ask questions and get some answers. I mean, not that would solve it, but if it comes this way, then what? We had the National Weather Service talk about, well, what does the weather patterns look like? Is there any rain in sight? If this, if it continues to be a drought and we don't get any water, what would the impact? What would the impact be if this thing starts to move closer to the metropolitan area and then starts to affect not 1,000, not 10,000 people, but more so hundreds of thousands of people, and what does that mean about our schools? And I mean, water fountains, I mean, hospitals, let's just go on everywhere we need water, and that, as well as the heat, because now, we're dealing with 100-degree heat days that were constantly on and on and on with no rain in sight. And that also, then people are stuck inside. They're trying to stay cool and ventilated and hydrated. So, I mean, there are all these factors that get in. So we did all that we could to make sure that we could help and let people know that we are concerned about it. And we're here to listen to you if you want to just vent, because sometimes that's what people need to do on that point.
Yeah. I think you might have hit the nail on the head on why I find this so overwhelming. So my follow-up question is, though, so then how do we, as average citizens, those of us who are sitting on this phone call, how do we get involved in environmental justice? Clearly, we're not going to be taking on the Army Corps of Engineers in order to fight the salt wedge and the absolute ignorance of continuing to do this to us over and over again. But how do we get involved? Like, what would your suggestions be?
Well, I think first of all is education. Educate your community about not only what are the issues, but also about what are like terminology. Sometimes, the government can use certain terms, or like scientists can use certain terms, and they seem to be so complicated, but truly they're not. They're the same terms that community uses. They just call them something different. And so what we've done over the years is say, okay, let's educate our community about what these terms are, and let's break them down so that okay, well, when we talk about flooding, for example, I mean, things like clean out our drains and the debris that stops the drains. And that point, something as simple as making sure that plastic bottles or anything doesn't just stop the water from going through. When you build this kind of trench around your house so that the water doesn't just sit around the base of your house, but that the water then can, you can build that trench where that water then moves. Maybe it moves towards a garden, or we catch the rainwater off the roof into, we say a barrel, but it can be a bucket. It can be, something where the water is being caught. Then you can you can use that water for your garden and so forth, put it back into the ground. Because subsidence for us is so important, because we were pumping water out, therefore making the ground brittle. It's like, I use an example of a sponge. If the dry sponge is, no water, and it's brittle, and it starts to break up. But when you put water, it makes it again a spongy, and so it's kind of bouncy. So that's the soil. And so you don't have subsidence if you have enough moisture in the soil where the soil is absorbing it, not all at once, because then it can only absorb so much, but over a period of time. And that soil then doesn't become brittle. But if we pump everything out of it, like sucking all the water out the sponge, and the dry sponge is brittle. So, just
I
understanding some
appreciate
of those things.
I was going to say, I
you know.
appreciate the piece that you're talking about education, because I know that happened to us is because of the drought, the subsidence. We didn't realize that when the water we had all this excess water, it wasn't going down into the ground, and our porch sunk 7 inches off the side
Yeah,
of our house and
yeah,
ripped away from the side of our house. And it was because somebody finally educated Matt and I on what needed to be happen. We're now able to put the plants that suck the water into the ground, and it's being able to be risen back up. But
yeah,
we have no clue. Most people think that in order to get rid of the water, put more cement so that you can't have water setting on your property. And so that
yeah.
education piece is so huge.
And then plants. I mean, that's
Yeah,
another way,
right.
we all, we have plants. And so we look at native plants. Well, you say, what is a native plant? Well, you can look it up and we can find that, plants basically that are grown here and that survive here better in New Orleans area for us, or it could be in the Florida area. We're very tropical. Florida is very tropical, which basically means we have more heat than we have cold. And the plants that survive in that. And so, but those plants also plants who can absorb the water and help that. So, you can create a garden, like a rain garden, that really attracts that water. And it's amazing how it pulls that water towards that rain garden and pulls that water so that it doesn't sit around the base of your house and then you have flooding. And I suspect in Florida, like here, we have mosquitoes. So of course, sitting water becomes an issue. So it's also like, yeah, you don't want that water just to sit there and then mosquitoes develop in lavas, and then again, what mosquitoes do, and also termites. So I mean, for Louisiana and Florida, we're very similar in our weather, and many times in weather patterns, because many of the patterns that come from the west that hit us in New Orleans many times go east, and a lot of times goes into the Florida. um, but it's educating those things and seeing what can be done. You don't need government to do that. But once you start to do these things, you'll find government will kind of adapt to come in and help, or at least to be part of that. And they have lots of different programs and lots of different tools that can be, as well as other nonprofits. Many of our faith-based groups have environmental components, environmental justice, which basically is the injustice that happens to people because of environmental issues and basically economic gain, oil and gas, putting these plants where people are already established, particularly near along the water. We have Cancer Alley and, and the pollutants that come with that, so it's not only, it's educating, but it's also, you got rights. And so formulating that, you were there, it wasn't that people chose to move into a place where the plant was there. It's usually the other way around. People were there, and then, okay, the government, in many cases, sells this land so we can have economic growth, but at the stake of people's lives, and so it's also knowing your political, knowing your rights, your justice rights, your political rights, and how do you sustain your communities and neighborhoods, because we're all impacted one way or the other. It's maybe them tomorrow, but it could be us today. And so, you kind of have to look at that and work together, in coalitions and so forth, and policies. How do we, one thing is we have activities, but the policies that need to be established to make sure that those activities stay away, or that we, get laws to help protect ourselves on that point. But that means that we have to have policy leaders who understand the constituents and the needs in that constituent and are willing to stand up for their constituents, not only when there's election time, but at other times. There's our, again, our faith of realizing that, this land is of value to all people. And, how do we make sure that that happens, that, no one, not because of how much money you have or, the color of your skin or the level of your education gives you more rights than others. And that has to come from the people. And if the people do more of that, well, we'll put in different leaders who also recognize that. And I think, we want the betterment for our globe and for our country, for the world at that point. And we see that if we don't, we're killing ourselves. Mother Nature is going to do what she does. And she's always done that. And no matter what we try to do to divert it. And many times that diversion is done because we're doing things for greed and economic gain. Oil and gas is not bad, but when you start to just suck everything out of it for gain, and then you just drain our watersheds of those natural resources, not because we need, but because we're greedy. And and then when there's no more in there, they leave it and then they go off to something else. But do realize too that our oil and gas companies who are now being billed as energy companies because they're looking at solar energy, they're looking at hydro, water energy, and windmills is another means, because that's where the economic gain is going to be. And also they've drained so much of our natural resources out of the oceans and coal, and so there's no secret that fossil fuel is now being downplayed and other types of energy sources are being increased. But we need to understand the difference in that. The whole thing about carbon capture. Well, people know the term, but they don't always know what it means. Our carbon footprint, and we hear that. Well, we need to do this. We need to use less motor vehicles and do more bikes and do more walking. And that means that we need to position our how we build our communities so that people can walk to stores and that they have the stores in there instead of food deserts. So these are all things that
Which
we
all
have
ties back into economics, right?
economics. That's it. But we can control some of those economics because we're the ones, we're the community that
So
we
another question I had was, so because environmental work and environmental justice is such a huge topic, how are you able to define success in what you're doing?
well, for us, one of the means of success is that next generation. We see the look in those young people's eyes. We see them focused when it's 100 degrees outside in the summer, when they would, even with a stipend, they would prefer to be doing something else. And we see that look that you see in your young people, in your children, your grandchildren, when you know that they are latched on to something, the same as they are on that phone and on that computer and on that video game. When you see them get that, then you know that they're interested. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that opportunity that they have there, that they're taking advantage of it. The other thing is when community is blending together in various coalitions to talk about these issues to protect their community. The same is with is the environment, the same as with violence. And when community lends together and numbers increase and you see, you're able to make change. When we're able to bring an idea into a policy, hopefully into a law that changes how we've normally been doing business, because we brought that into the attention and it happens, then you say, oh, we've been successful because we've caught their attention. And again, taking the idea all the way up the scale to policy and new laws is not easy. But all along the way, there are little successes on that. When you capture attention, or when you change something that has been done, even a practice, and when more of our policymakers see that the community wants something and will not budge until they get it,
Right.
they will. They have to, because they know that if they don't, they won't be around. And that's really what they're looking for. But we have to compete with some of those other elements that, wave the carrots in front of their faces. Like, okay, we need to have this plant because it's going to bring, jobs that are going to pay, a lot of money. But also, they don't tell you that some of those jobs are also going to cause a lot of death, a lot of hurt to those families. And there are examples of that over and over again. That doesn't mean that you can't find a medium where there can be jobs and where it doesn't have to be as severe. And instead of making $100 billion, you're going to make $50 billion in the company,
Right.
By doing some of those in the regulations that are there. But we also have a society that, is you need to have less regulations. But when we have less regulations, many of the times it also means somebody is going to be hurt. Some bodies are going to be hurt. And many times you look around, it's somebody that or a relative, a friend, a community member, somebody who knows somebody who's lost someone or someone is disabled because of that. I mean, we see these commercials all the time. Oh, asbestos. If you were born before 1950 and blah 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 blah. Well, it's now 2024, and if anybody's still alive from that point, then okay, just like smoking, we knew it was bad, but we said, oh, it's not that bad until just losing so many lives and so many people were affected that we had to do regulations and warnings. And yeah, there's still people who smoke. Even if you increase the pack of a cigarette to whatever it costs now, some astronomical amount, but people still do it. But so many others are not. So many others again sometimes have lost family members, and and so there's probably not initially as many people smoking as when I came along. It was a rite of passage. But these are what we call successes. These are what we're seeing, and we have to have more. One more thing I'll say: we have to have more interaction, like we're having right now, to talk with each other and to engage about the the importance and the issues and why it's necessary. Whether you're in Louisiana or you're in Florida, many of the same challenges we have there together, and how do we make that happen? So those are successes. They start off as small successes right in your own family, in your own communities, your own neighborhoods, your own cities, your own states, and then it kind of grows from there. But there is also now, things happen much faster. The social media allows that you can share and you can engage when didn't used to be that way. But those are all successes of how we promote and market and look at what are some of the issues and how we educate each other.
So I want one more question, and then I want to open it up for the last bit for everybody
Sure.
else who has any questions. But what would be your one word of advice for all of our friends that are here who maybe face opposition to the work that you're talking about? You had started out by saying, one of the things of opposition is the words that we use, or somebody who's saying, what, it's not really real, it's not really impacting us, or talking about regulations, or any of the feats, any kind of opposition we have. What would be your one word of advice for us when coming up against opposition?
Well, my one word would be persistence. The facts are on your side, whether people accept them or not. I mean, we see that a lot these days. It's right in front of your face, and they still say no. But persistence, and you would say most reasonable people, and of course, we find that there are maybe more unreasonable people than we ever thought. But that cannot, it's like our faith. Yes, there's those who don't believe for whatever reasons, and that's their right. But that doesn't stop us from believing. It doesn't stop us from continuing to push that. And yeah, maybe we convert somebody who didn't believe, and you get one. But if you got one, that means you got one more than what you had. And so you got to look at little successes. But that persistence of that, you just can't say, oh, what can we do? Maybe you won't win every battle. We know that. You won't win every war, but you still have to be persistent because you know it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Well, it is 7 o'clock, so I want to open it up for everybody who's on here for questions. What are you wondering about? Or thoughts? What struck
Sarah,
what
can
struck you?
I need to get 1 minute break. Can I do that?
Of course.
Okay, great.
That'll give everybody a time to think.
All right, great.
I'd never heard of a salt wedge before. Have y'all heard of it? Idea they were doing that.
If you guys are talking and want us to hear, we cannot.
Oh, okay.
Fair warning.
This is Donna. I said, I've never heard of a salt wedge before.
Yeah, I had not either until all of a sudden it was on the news and they were telling us pretty much that we were going to have our own water to do absolutely everything. Otherwise, we were going to destroy our pipes and we were all going to die from saltwater intake.
Good grief.
It was not a fun experience, but I did not know what Arthur was telling us, that it was man-caused. Unfortunately, what was coming out from the Army Corps of Engineers as well as on the news was that this was all because of the drought. They kind of left out that first part that, yes, some of it has to do with the drought, but it's also because we've decided that we're going to dig the heck out of the river and disturb everything.
Sarah,
Yes.
isn't McElhenney Island a salt wet?
Sorry?
An island of salt. Isn't McElhenney Island outside of New Orleans, where they make McElhenney, the hot sauce, where they grow the peppers? That's all salt.
I'm going to hope Arthur knows what you're talking about because I genuinely don't.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I
yes,
don't have any idea what you're talking about.
Okay, you're talking about
McElhenney
the
Island.
island where it makes the hot sauce.
Yes. Isn't
And,
that based on salt?
Yes. Yeah, hot sauce has a lot of sodium in it. If you look at a bottle of hot sauce, Tabasco sauce, but then the hot sauce, and look at the sodium content, you'll see how much salt is just in that hot sauce.
Is that not because of the soil and that's there at McElhenney?
Well, yeah, because it's an island, and
Yeah.
it probably is a lot of salt around it. And so when they grow
toured
the
there, we
little
toured
peppers,
there a
yeah.
number of years ago, and they told us that's why that is such a great place to grow those peppers, because of the salt content in the soil.
Right, right.
I did not know that. I learn new things every day.
All right, I'm back.
Hello. Okay, now your questions for Arthur, because he's actually knowledgeable on this topic.
I have
The
one
first comment was they
regard-
didn't know anything about a saltwater wedge, and I said I didn't either before the news inaccurately shared it with us last year.
Right. Well, you know,
Arthur,
that was
one
one
question.
of the things. Oh, go ahead.
I have one question about these youth that you have working in this research and all that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
How many years has this been going on?
This is our 4th year.
Has any of your students decided to go on to college for something like that?
Yes, last year we had our first, should we say graduate, high school, graduate out of high school that was in the program. And she went on to University of Louisiana at Lafayette. She was a freshman last year. She's a sophomore this year. This year we had another young man who graduated out of high school in May. And so he's going on to college, and he did an internship last year at Tulane University in research besides with us. And he's going on, I think he's either going to UNO or University of New Orleans or either Louisiana Tech to study. He's a real brilliant young man and to study something in research. So yeah, they're, and I can't say because of our internship, but it had to help. It didn't take anything away from it. That they were pursuing their interest and seeing they're given the opportunity. And this young man, very, very smart, but he was kind of, he's I guess he kind of lost into the weeds. He wasn't, he's probably top of his class, but he was so interested in his research that he didn't. And then he also is a musician. I mean, so these young people have multi talent and skill sets
Mhm.
that they're there. They just need opportunities to share that.
You can take some credit for that, Arthur.
Well,
I think we lost you.
We lost Arthur.
Yeah.
He's frozen.
Yeah, I think so too.
can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, you're back.
Okay. Oh, okay. Let me go. My phone is like someone to die. But yeah, giving the opportunity for these young people to do what they like to do. And
Oh, get yourself plugged in and then jump back on. I was gonna say my internet was acting funny this evening too, so it's possible that we're having an issue in our area.
Who funds this program that he's doing?
I'm gonna let him answer that question. I don't know the answer to that of where they get all their money. I know where they get some of it, but I don't know all of it. So I'm gonna let him answer that.
yeah, give me a second. Let me plug this in.
Yep.
And stop the talk. Can you hear me? No.
Yes.
I can't now. You're muted.
Oh, yep.
What about now?
You're okay now.
Yes.
Oh,
Judy
okay.
asked where your funding comes from.
Okay, so we get our funding, we write grants. So for example, we have funding from the National Audubon Society, the National Wildlife Federation. Where else we got money from? We also have a grant with Tulane University that focuses on a curriculum development for water management and drainage. And so we use funding from that grant to help fund our internship. We get private donations. We don't get a lot of them, but we do as part of the funding cycle for that. And then through overhead of other grants, I pull some of that. Oh, let me not forget. This year, we entered into a relationship with a group called EcoRise that heard about our program and were interested, and they wanted to know more about it. And so we told them more about it, and they wind up becoming a funder this year. We got $25,000. They had a federal grant that they could use some of that funding to fund our program. So that has helped to fund our stipends for our interns. So that was a new funding.
Yeah.
And then we have other supporters who may not always provide financial, but other types of resources. Earth Echo is another organization, and they do water testing and water analysis, and they work with young people. And so they've come in and provide water testing kits and training for our interns this year. So this was a first for them this year as well. So that has really been helpful as far as developing our curriculum as well. So it's those kind of situations, and we're small. We beg, borrow, and steal. Well, I don't say we steal, but we do beg and borrow.
And beg some
to
more.
make these things happen, because this is so important. And we started off 4 years ago with maybe we had 6 or 7 students, and now we're over 20. So we've grown, and we're not trying to be hundreds of students, no, because the kind of work we're doing, the research, it does require a lot of sort of one-on-one, one-on-two type of work in that point. And so it's like I say, it's more than just STEM awareness, it's really doing real research. So understanding the research process, the theory, and then creating work where you're doing, then going out and collecting the data. And we do this the way that it's done in real research. It's not like we're mimicking research, we're actually doing real research. And this is where Dr. Singleton gets in, who has done research for, I guess, over 40 years. Is a researcher at the university level, at the government level, and the like. So, you know, he's well respected in that field and knows how to do that process. So they're really doing the research and following the full process on that basis. So, you know,
And I want to give a huge shout out to you guys because we've talked over the last couple of weeks of the importance of building relationships. And so often we want to skip that and we want to just jump to, well, here's how you do it. Here's the plan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you guys definitely reach out to absolutely everybody and anybody in order to partner together and make sure you're highlighting the expertise of those people, like bringing in a professor who actually knows research and can do the publications, or bringing in a group that does water testing. It's not that you yourself have to be the expert, but you build the relationships in order to bring them in to get the work done.
Right. And, you know, and through my networking and networking of others, my other colleagues, we're able to do that, and they're excited to do it, and they do it at no cost. You know, and but they know that, you know, the work that they're providing will grow the next generation of scientists and researchers and musicians and athletes and leaders. And so that's what's most important. But also we're building with them the emphasis to the young people that we as adults care. We care enough to create a program to listen to them and having them be part of this program and helping them to grow. And they, you know, they conceptualize that, and then it, you know, they're like, wow, you know, because that's not happening everywhere, you know. And you know, we tell them that once you're part of the CSED family, you're always part of the family. So, you know, when they graduate and go off to college, we invite them back. We want them to be research assistants, and we've had a couple of those who've done that as well in this 4-year period. And we now have a good chunk of juniors. So we know that, you know, next year, they'll, you know, this time they'll be going into their senior year. So we're excited about, you know, just having that. But we're also getting some 8th graders, you know, and we have a waiting list of some of the 7th graders who want to be part of the program. And so we know that next year we'll have some younger students. So, you know, it's continuing building this collection and coalition of young minds, and letting them know that we care, and we care about this earth. We care about society. We care about morals. I mean, we run these programs not as high school classroom programs, but more as graduate programs. So they have some liberty, you know, we have expectations. They are being there, coming to these programs. You know, we have entry from 8 to 9, and it goes from 9 to 3, and then, you know, we release from 3 to 4. We also know that, you know, as a minor, then you have to have a parent or a guardian that signs you in, and that picks you up. You know, we're not just going to let you go off and, you know, on your own, you know, because we're responsible. So, but we also, that builds a level of understanding and responsibility, and that we care, and reinforce that. So, you know, we not only have research assistants, Dr. Singleton, but we also have some retired teachers that are there, that are just there to, you know, be supportive. And, you know, if someone's not feeling well, or, you know, whatever, you know, say, oh, how are you feeling? Okay, hey, let's, you know, go out, go take you a walk, get you some water, you know, be concerned. And I think, you know, they value that, and everybody does. And so, you know, we feel like this is not school, but this is an opportunity, you know, and we expose them to leaders and from the city. We've had city council people come. We've had, you know, so you get to see the mayor at the neighborhood summit. We have other professionals as well. So they get to experience, and, you know, they may not always know who they are, but it's like these are some important people, you know. And one of the things we're going to do this year as well is there are 15,000 teenagers coming to New Orleans as part of a faith-based program to build disaster preparation kits to be distributed. We're participating in that, and we're having our interns will do a distribution of these kits on July the 19th. They'll be here from the 17th to the 19th. And so we also reinforce not only community service, but service learning. You know, all the kids need service learning hours, and we tell them, look, you know, here's your time that you're here. These can be some service learning hours that you can have. So just let us know, you know, when you need your letter of how many hours you did, and you're doing a lot of them in the summer. You probably can get all your hours in just the summer program alone. So, you know, just let us know when, you know, and we'll submit the letter as a nonprofit on that point. So, you know, we're encouraging them to do things, but we're also, you know, giving them something that they need as well as they go through this process.
Something I want to throw out there that you mentioned at the beginning of your answer was the partners that you ask are thrilled to help you. And I think so often when we're asking people either for help or we're asking people to partner with us or we're asking for money or whatever it is, we think that it's going to be such a burden. But exactly what you said has been what I've found, which is people like to be asked. They like to be a part of things. They like to feel as if they're needed. And so we have to remember that as we enter into this kind of work, that we need partners. We need people to come around us, whether or not it be monetarily, whether or not we need expertise or whatever it is. But we have to be able to put ourselves aside, realizing what we're doing is much bigger than ourselves. And also that often people just want to be asked. They don't like to be left out. They don't want to be pushed aside. They want to be involved in something that's going to make a difference. And so to take the chance in asking, because the worst that could happen is they say no.
Absolutely.
But and just like if a kid comes up to me and they offer me to buy a candy bar and I don't have any cash on me, I don't feel terrible about that kid. I feel badly that I don't have any money to buy the candy bar. And it's the same with us as adults. Like we don't feel badly when somebody asks us, so we shouldn't feel badly asking.
Right. And I mean, we have to teach that to our young people too, that, you know, sometimes rejection, you know, you bounce back from the rejection, it becomes stronger and bigger. You just don't, you know, rejection, accept it, and then, you know, just sulk. So, you know, and that's also part of the learning process and part of the being, you know, as you get older, being an adult and realizing that everything is going to go the way you would like them to go all the time. But you can, you know, you can learn from that, you know. And so they're getting some of those experiences as well. So.
Awesome.
Arthur,
so what other questions do we got?
Is there any traction in the schools? It seems like you're accomplishing so much here in 5 weeks, and kids are learning to do. Some of these kids are juniors, and they're going back to their senior year in their high school or whatever. Are any of the schools taking advantage of this? And you know, there's STEM programs or something giving them opportunity to research.
Well, the New Harmony High School, which is a state charter focused on environmental, I'll say is one example that they are. This is the first year we did. In the last 3 years, we didn't have any students from New Harmony, but this year we have 5. And some of that is because one of those students that we had last year, he transferred to New Harmony this year. And so he recruited, and we didn't even know he was recruiting, but he recruited some of his fellow students. And so there, you know, and so, but I used to be on the, initially New Harmony High started about maybe 6 years ago. And I was one of the initial board members when it started. And so we do have a relationship. We work with like 9th and 10th grade classes during the school year where they come out to our center or to our nursery. And, you know, we get them involved in community service, but all teaching them about the environment and ecosystems and things of that nature. So we're glad to see that now we have students participating in the internship program. Another thing is that we work with another one of our nonprofits on a program called CORE. Forgive me, I can't remember what it stands for, but we during the school year where we help the two schools um, do plants and come out to the wetlands and do kayaking. We have kayaks and we provide that for these students. And so at no cost, it was through the core program that, at least helped to pay for some of that. And they get that experience. And many of these kids had never, right in the city where the central wetlands is, they've never seen it. They've never been there. Bayou Sauvage is a federally run um, um, wetlands. And so, it's free, you can come there. But, again, what we found is that many of our inner city kids, and many kids in the city just, they don't really, they've never experienced what's there. And the schools don't always, field trips, and they always say it's too expensive, we don't have any money. So, but this school, through this core program, they're actually able to do field trips. And these kids, you see the look on their eyes. They're excited. They've never been there. They're somewhat nervous because, they've never been on the water, they've never been in a kayak. But once they get in, they love it, and they're able to brag about what they've done. And so that's another, when you talk about what's success, when you see that in those kids. And we've done that for about 2 or 3 years straight and we'll continue to work with these schools during the school year to get them exposed to environment. And they're learning, even if they don't think that they're learning, and they're experiencing. These field trips are so important, where they're getting hands-on field trip experience.
So I was going to say, this actually ties back, Ben, into the first week when Leona and Tremaine were on. They were talking about the fragmented nature of our school system, because everything's run by independent charters. Yes. And so part of the problem is that there's not a universal curriculum. There, you get standards from the state, but there's no curriculum given to you for history, which is what we were talking about with Leona and Tremaine, but also with science. And so it's up to each school in order to figure out how they're going to handle covering these topics. And they don't really. And so it's up to nonprofits like CSED. And then I know our girls' school, I was super impressed this year. There was a nonprofit that stepped in and really helped to cover a lot of those standards. And also, but it's up to those charters in order to make sure they make the funds available. There are funds available. There is money for field trips and such. But when you start digging into how is that charter run, where are they putting that money? Right. Often it is not being used on curriculum, on hands-on learning, on holistic education. It's on, we could have a whole conversation about that. So there's a big issue in the fact that there's not a set curriculum, and also there's not a set governing board. So how do you go about making sure that this information is great for New Harmony, it's great for our girls' school ISL,
right?
But what about all those other kids? What about all those other schools?
Well, one of the things that we're through the experience of New Harmony and some of the other schools is, again, it's kind of like you got to go to each individual school, because, since in New Orleans, there may be only one or two, maybe one school that's run by the school district. That's just new this year.
Yeah, so I was going to say, we're going to have one again.
Yeah, and there's no high school. So, you almost got to go by school, and, kind of make appeals and work with that school. So it makes it a little tough. It's not like we don't have a lot of capacity. So we're doing a lot of different things. Doesn't mean we won't do it. It just means that it takes a little longer, but one of the great tools that we have are those kids who are in the program to be your recruiters. Because just That's like awesome. With New Harmony, there's nothing like peer-to-peer recruitment, and they've had a good experience, and they can relay it much better than any one of us as adults can do to these young people to connect with them. And so we've seen that. We've seen a couple of besides New Harmony, there's a new student. She's, I think, going to 9th grade. She recruited two of her friends to come be part of the program. If nothing else, I guess, we figured, well, I'm not doing nothing, you might as well, come with me. But, this is the kind of like they say, by word of mouth. This is what we need to not only spread about our program, but also about the needs in our community. We have to use our young people, whether we use them at school, or whether we use them at church, whether we use them at community centers, wherever, neighborhood organizations, whatever. We have to use these young people. They're there. They want to be involved, and we have to use them. But we also, we gotta, we have to listen. We can't just tell them all what to do. We got to kind of give it to them, but we got to let them run with it. And once their hooks are in it, oh, they'll run with it. They'll make it bigger and better than we ever could imagine. But we have to let it go a little bit, so to give them more reign to do that once we establish them. And I think that's what has to happen. And if we do that, I think we'll see a lot of changes. We'll see more involvement, because there's nothing like peer-to-peer. I won't call it pressure, but just for lack of a better word, it's like they put
works.
pressure on each other, and
Accountability.
accountability. There you go. That's a good word.
That's a
Accountability.
nicer way of saying it.
Yes. And
I
that's
think
what
we
have
have
to
time
have.
for one more question if somebody has one
Okay.
that's burning.
Just a comment, when he was asked earlier what was one of the measures of success, I think you just shared right here about the peer-to-peer and what people are taking back and recruiting other people and spreading it to other schools. That's a measure of success.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. And we have to recognize that how important that is, maybe most important, because that's lasting, and when it gets into their gut, they run with it. But we also have to support some of the things they run with. Sometimes we don't, we may not always understand, this thing, social media, and why it's so important to them, but we have to listen to it, and if they're doing it for the right reasons and getting the right results, then even if we don't understand it, we have to, show support. And maybe we'll come around, maybe we won't, but it's going to happen. And so, we need to blend with that. But that accountability is so significant.
Arthur, this has been so informative and mostly so inspirational. And Sarah could not have ended with a better program, because we can go away feeling uplifted and like there is hope.
Yes,
so thank you.
absolutely. And Sarah, you can share my contact information with, each and every one of your colleagues here. And I'll be glad to, anything we can do. I mean, these programs are set up where they can, they can be in your community as well. We can see how we can make that happen. That's not, they're, to me, they're designed to expand, and they're not so unique in New Orleans. Is they're just programs that can happen. Each community is different, but they can happen everywhere. And that's what our hope is, so that we have lots of these different. We don't get anything by being the only research. We have lots of these different programs out there, and that's what I'm hoping to help develop, because that's what's going to help change the direction that we have put ourselves in.
Is your email on your website? Because I definitely have already shared your website. Or do I need to share that separately?
It should be, but my email is just ajohnson@sustainthe9.org. So that's SUSTAINTHENINE.org.
I just put it in the chat.
Okay, great. And if text messages your plan or phone, my direct cell is 504-421-9643. 504-421-9643.
Thank you.
And we
Arthur,
take donations.
I really, really, really appreciate it. I know you've had a long day. as students were arriving at 8 o'clock this morning, and we're
Yeah.
pushing 8 o'clock here, but thank you. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And I enjoyed this and look forward to it. And hopefully, you know, we'll get some progress and see how we're making. But again, anything I can do to help, just, you know, you can't reach me, get to Sarah, and she can find me. She sees me all the time. So
I do.
she'll
Awesome.
track me down. Great. All right. Well, y'all have a great 4th of July. And, you know, again, it's going to be hot here. I'm sure it's probably hot in Florida as well. But, you know, it's summer. What do we want?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
All right. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Arthur. Well, I don't really know how to end other than thank you guys for coming each week. I've been super impressed at how many people come back each and every week. I just pray that there's something that you've gathered from this that you'll be able to take away and can really make a difference not only in your own life, but also in your community. This was just a taste of the incredible people that I get to work with every single day. And I genuinely pinch myself at the opportunity that I get to be here, and to sit at these tables and to learn from each of these people. And so I just pray that it's been a blessing for you all. And similar to Arthur, if you want to continue the conversation, phone call, text, email, I'm up for all of it. And I really, really can't wait for you guys to come, to get to meet everybody in person, and just to create that space where we can have more conversations. It doesn't need to be a racing around and running everywhere and doing all the things, but just a space for conversation and building of relationships. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On that note, Sarah did hear back on their fall break is the weekend of October 11th, right? Was about the time that you were looking at. So I will work on confirming that we will have a driver for that weekend. So if you are interested in going on pilgrimage to New Orleans with us, please put that date on your calendar. And as soon as I find out about a driver, I will sit down and me and Sarah will figure out what that's going to look like. But let's just give Sarah a big thank you. I mean, this was absolutely incredible. Just you put so much hard work into this, and you made so many asks, which that can go underappreciated. You made a lot of asks, and you really leaned into a lot of important and beautiful relationships, and that's a lot of vulnerability. So I want to celebrate and thank you for that as well. Because we got to
my
done
privilege.
Could you say the date again?
Sorry.
The date for the trip?
Oh, it's so it's around the weekend of October 11th. We don't know the exact dates, but it'll be around that time. Because that's when Matt's fall break is, since he wears lots of hats. And it would be helpful if he were around to help. But no, it's been a true privilege, like I said, to be able to reach out and to have those relationships, and even just to see the progress since the last time that the youth made a trip here. None of those relationships existed, which is crazy to think. But the Lower Ninth Ward is an incredible community, and for you guys to be able to see just a glimpse of how incredible it is, not just the negative sides, but those were all Lower Ninth Ward residents that were teaching on some pretty great topics.
Yeah, and all folks that have been there for a while, like doing the real work for a long time and building those relationships for a long time. And I know for me at least, it was very inspiring of you know, what it can look like in our own community as well. And that this is all doable work. So thank you.
I was left with how positive they all are in all the barriers and things they've run into, but they still stay positive and keep going forward.
Yeah.
Persistent is the word he used.
Persistence.
They're all persistent.
Persistence indeed. Cool. Well, without further ado, I can close this in prayer. I will upload this on YouTube and send out a recap email like all the other ones. Feel welcome to share this with your friends. You know, we've got, you know, the whole series. You definitely feel welcome to share that. And again, you know, as always, those links to be able to support Arthur as well as all the other organizations will be included as well. God, thank you so much for this day and this time. Thank you for Arthur and all the really incredible work that he's doing. I was feeling jealous of his students. Just what amazing opportunities those youth have before them, and what an impact they will make both in their community now and all the communities they will be a part of to come. We know that you are blessing that work already, that you are moving through Arthur, that you are moving through their organization, and that your creation is being restored through them. May we learn from them about the ways that you would have us care for creation as well. That there are things that we can do. That though this is overwhelming, you are not calling us to fix the whole earth, but you are calling us to care for this little patch where you have planted us, just as they are caring for the little patch that is New Orleans. And God, we thank you so much for Sarah. Thank you for all the relationships that she has built for the past 8 or 9 years. Thank you that we have gotten to benefit from them, that we have gotten to learn through her and through them. Thank you that we have gotten the gift of what it looks like to build relationships in community over that kind of time. That we have been humbled through the grace that is the slow work of building relationship. That we might go forth and do likewise. In your holy and precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you,
Did you
Ben.
guys also get the
Thank
joy of
you.
hearing that my kids singing happy birthday to the dog?
No,
I was sitting over here giggling while you were praying because they're screaming happy birthday at the top of their lungs to the dog.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Did they bake him a cake?
If I had to guess, yes. Yes. I can almost guarantee that that has happened. I'm not so sure I want to see my kitchen when I walk out there, but I'm pretty sure yes. Anyway, thank you guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.